All right, you're listening to 91.5 WUML Lowell. The program is Blues Deluxe, and I have the distinct honor and pleasure to have the great Will WIlde on with me today. How you doing, Will?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. So, Will, tell me about how you got started playing harmonica. How old were you, and where did you start out?
Well, I guess I was 16 or 17 when I first started. It was Sonny Boy Williamson's "Help Me" was really the song that made me want to pick up the harp and play. Um, just something about the feel of that song, and his tone and his vibrato, and just made me want to learn it. And I found a harmonica laying around at someone's house party. It's just like a free plastic Guinness harmonica that I found on the table, and that's what I started to learn on. Playing to Muddy Waters records. I used to play to the King Bee album, which has Jerry Portnoy on harp, and the Hard Again album, which has James Cotton on harp.
Yeah.
And really that's how I learned, just playing to those two albums from start to finish over and over again for the first sort of year or so that I played. And then from there got into stuff like Canned Heat, Charlie Musselwhite, you know. And then as I progressed more, I started listening to more guitar players. So people like Gary Moore, Paul Kossoff, Peter Green, Buddy Guy, and some rock guitarists too, like Angus Young or even Slash. I've taken some inspiration from them as well. Yeah.
So, growing up, what was on the radio you were listening to? What music were you listening to other than what you just mentioned?
Yeah, right. So it was kind of a real contrast, really, because when I was a kid, my dad used to listen to all the old, Chess records, blues stuff, and some old soul and a bit of 70s, like classic rock. But this, around about sort of early 2000s was when I was a teenager. So the kind of stuff I was listening to then were bands like Rage Against the Machine, Silverchair, Skunk Anansie, Korn, Marilyn Manson, some of the bands I used to listen to.
Wow.
And there was the sort of American pop punk kind of thing going on then as well, like bands like Offspring and NoFX and stuff like that. So I had this real kind of mix of, contemporary, kind of heavier, aggressive stuff and the old blues and soul stuff. It all kind of fed in to the style that I have now, I suppose.
Your first record came out when? What year?
I don't actually remember. The first thing I put out kind of unofficially was an album called Nothing But Trouble, which I don't know when that was.
2002. Right
Probably
around there.
about then. Yeah.
Because I remember that. That's the only record I know of, other than the new stuff that I've seen that you have, the like Raw Blues and Unleashed.
Right. Yeah. So really, like Unleashed was the first proper record that I made. And then Raw Blues after that. I did a live album, live in Hamburg. And then we did a sort of covers album called Bring It On Home, which is the idea behind that was to sort of pay tribute to all the British and Irish kind of blues rock originators. So and to use the harmonica in ways that it hadn't really been used before, using it as like a replacement for sort of rock lead guitar. So we did Lazy by Deep Purple, but flipped the solos around. So I played all of Ritchie Blackmore's guitar lines. And then there is a little harmonica solo in the original song, but we put the guitar solo there. So
So you switched it around.
Yeah.
And then you do the Wizard on there too, which was cool.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's another one that, you know, has harp on the original, so we just thought it'd be cool to.
Yeah, Ozzy did the harp on that originally.
Right, yeah, yeah. They actually started as a blues band apparently,
Yeah,
and then they decided to try and make it sound more kind of more evil. That's what they said. So
and then you do Parisian Walkways and a couple other things too
right,
on there.
yeah. I think Parisian was really like a turning point for me in my style of playing. I think that although it's a cover, I feel like that's when I really started to find my own voice on the harp. Because I'd mentioned to Danny Giles, who was playing guitar with me at the time, like, oh, we should, you know, try and write a song that's like a kind of minor ballad like Parisian or still got the blues, that kind of a thing. And he said, well, why don't we just cover it? You know? And I didn't really want to cover that song because, especially at the time, loads of people on the blues rock circuit in Europe were covering it, and a lot of them not particularly well, you know. So I was kind of getting fed up of hearing people play that song badly, you know. But I think because it's a different instrument, we could get away with covering it. You know, it's like you're never gonna get Gary Moore on the guitar, but I could do something different with it with the harmonica. And when I listened to that mix back, it was like, okay, yeah, that's like the sound I want to go ahead with. You know.
I'm going to mention one that's on the live album that I kind of was blown away that you did was Philby. That's a
Oh right, I'd forgotten about that one. Yeah,
that's a great song from an Irish guitar player.
Rory Gallagher. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We did that one for the German fans, really, because the Live in Hamburg record. There's a lot of Rory Gallagher fans in Germany, it turns out. So I thought it'd be a good idea. Yeah.
And you mentioned Paul Kossoff, another great guitar player
Right.
that you look up to, and he was great when Free, playing all those great songs in Free.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, they're one of my favorite bands.
And you covered one of those songs too, a Free song on one of your albums.
Oh, we did. Yeah, we did. We did My Brother Jake.
Yeah, My Brother Jake.
Yeah,
That's it.
Yeah.
So, tell me about recording. How do you record? Do you have a band, a regular band that you record with?
Well, so up until the pandemic, I'd been going out under my own name, as you know, as a blues rock artist. And then over the pandemic, when everything obviously stopped, I started a new band, new project with a guitarist called Steve Brook, and we wrote a bunch of songs together. And the idea behind it was not to make a blues album or a blues rock album, but to make just a hard rock record that just so happens to have lead harmonica solos in it instead of guitar solos. And when we first started making it, I wasn't sure whether it was just going to be the next Will WIlde album. But by the time we finished, it was kind of clear it needed to go out as something new, because it's like a different direction. So we formed a new band called Bad Luck Friday. It's our debut record here.
Yeah.
See that?
Yeah.
So that's what I've been doing really for the last year or so.
Yeah, and I like it. It has blues influence in it. You can hear the blues in it too, surprisingly enough.
There's certainly some blues in there for sure. Yeah. I've been thinking about making another solo record as well. I've been writing some proper like blues tunes as well, which won't fit with Bad Luck Friday. So I'm gonna do them on my next solo record, probably sometime next year.
My favorite songs from Raw Blues, which is a subset of the first album that I have on CD, which was the very first one. Paranoia is great.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
38 is great, about an older woman. That's another great tune. And
right.
everything on that Raw Blues record is great.
Thank you.
And most of it's on your live album. I like the live versions of some of those songs too.
Yeah, the live album came out not too long after that, so so a lot of the same songs, plus a couple of covers.
Well,
as
you
well.
had Philby in there too, which was
Philby
great.
and On the Road Again was the other one.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your sister, who I
Sure.
found out through you. Do you ever get to play with her at all when she's out playing, or no?
Yeah, I mean that was my first proper gig. Really, was playing in her band, because she signed to Roof Records around about, I don't know, 2008, something like that. And I'd only been playing for a few years then, really. So I started off just playing harp in her band, and then I went off and formed my own thing. But we've done a few like acoustic duo tours over the years. There's some stuff of that on YouTube, and I've played harp on pretty much every record that she's put out since as well. So she's not touring as much right now because she's got 2 young kids now.
Yep.
She still does a few gigs and puts out the odd single. But I'm sure we'll do some more stuff at some point.
Yeah, she had a live album out not too long ago, a couple years ago that I had. It's killer. It's great.
Yeah, live at Brighton Road.
Yeah. Great album. So let's talk about your harmonica sound. All I can tell you is you just rip playing that harmonica, and the nasty sound you get out of a harmonica. I'm not used to hearing that. Usually it's clean sounding usually, but you get great nasty sound. And you know what I compare it to is there's another band that you cover. Jethro Tull was the original.
Oh, right, yeah.
He originally made the flute sound like that, and you make the harmonica sound nasty like that too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of that is from just from listening to guitarists and I guess trying to sort of keep up with the intensity of guitar players in the various like band lineups.
You don't have a problem with that at all, I can tell you.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, in the early days when I was playing with my sister's band, she had a guy called Ben Paul in her band then, and he's quite a fast, kind of aggressive, that kind of Gary Moore, Walter Trout kind of style. And then I had Danny Giles playing in my band for a few years, who again is that more that kind of a player than like a traditional like Chicago blues player. So I always had to keep up with their intensity when I take a solo, so I guess that's really where it comes from. I'm trying to imitate guitar, and I came up with my own tuning of harmonicas, which I use now. It's called the WIlde tuning, and that lets me get more expression and use more vibrato and bends in the upper octave of the harp. So that's how I do a lot of that kind of stuff that you hear on.
So how did that come about? Your own tuning? How did you come about that?
It was really just born out of years of frustration with with the standard Richter tuning. I don't know how much you know about harmonicas.
Yeah. What's the difference between your tuning and the Richter tuning?
So on a standard harp, you can only bend the draw notes from holes 1 to 6. On my harp, you can bend all of the draw notes from holes 1 to 10. So you can get a lot more like more bends and more vibrato on the high notes, and there's a couple of notes you can get that are missing on a regular harp as well. So
So
That's it
it
really.
expands the level of it of playing, correct?
Yeah, just the top four holes are configured differently. Yeah.
And you have your own? They're made for you by who? Who makes them for
They
you?
are now, yeah. I mean, I've been endorsed by Seidel Harmonicas in Germany for years. And the first wild tuned harps I made myself just by like filing the reeds down, retuning them that way. And then I was at a harmonica kind of conference seminar thing in St. Louis, and I gave a talk about the tunings that I've been using, and Bertram from Seidel was there, and he saw the seminar that I gave and liked the idea. So then I got talking to them about putting it out commercially. So yeah, it's been available as a as a tuning for the last sort of 5 or 6 years now.
Do you get a cut out of that?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's good. That's good. So you were in St. Louis with other harp players. Who else was there with you during that?
Jason Ritchie, um, Todd Parrott, who's a great sort of country player from North Carolina. Rolly Platt, he's a great sort of blues session guy. I can't think. There's so many. I think
So
Charlie McCoy was at the first time I went.
you mentioned Jason. Jason's like you in a lot of ways too. He's just crazy good player.
Yeah, there's certainly similarities. I think we've got very different styles in some ways, but kind of similar approaches in other ways. I think he's got a bit more. Certainly got more kind of jazz theory behind his playing. I think I'm a bit more kind of just raw blues rock.
Straight ahead. Yeah, you're straight ahead raw.
Yeah.
What other harp players out there today that you look at or listen to, other than yourself?
Yeah, I don't know really. I mean, the guys I just mentioned are kind of the players I respect the most right now. Jason, Rolly Platt, Todd Parrott,
John Popper, he had nice
John
things to
Popper.
say.
Yeah, amazing player. I wouldn't say I'm really like all that influenced by those guys. I think I made a point of not really trying to take from them and like study their styles, because I don't want to be
You're your own style, by the way.
exactly. Yeah, I don't want to be a Jason Ritchie copy or a John Popper copy or whatever. So really, like, I haven't listened to a lot of harmonica, if I'm honest, in the last sort of 5 to 10 years. It's mostly been guitar, and I would say that Gary Moore's guitar playing is probably, like, the last couple of years has been like the biggest influence on my harmonica playing. Yeah, so it's kind of a combination of blues rock guitarists and the old, the original old Chicago blues harp players.
You mentioned Peter Green. He's another one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, great player.
And the live album. Let's talk a little bit about the live album. Then we'll talk about Bad Luck Friday.
All right. Cool.
How did the live album come about? Not usually people don't put out live albums, but that one,
right.
That one's great. Sounds great.
Thanks. To be honest, it was. I can be open about it now because it was a long time ago. But the reason I decided to do a live album initially was to fulfill a record contract that I was in that I wasn't particularly happy with, because it wasn't really working out for me, let's say. So I thought, well, I've got to do one more record, so I'll just do a live record. So we had it all agreed, and it was all booked in. Been booked in for months, and then a few days before we went to do the live album, which, as far as everyone was aware was supposed to be like the third and final record in this contract. A few days before, the label kind of tried to pull a fast one. I don't think this label is still around anymore, actually. Tried to pull a fast one and get me to sign some like extension thing that basically said this album wasn't going to count against the 3 albums, and I was still going to have to make another studio record after it. And I was like livid at the time. Yeah, so there were like big arguments. And when I got to the venue, and I'd been seeking like legal advice, trying to sort this out. When I got to the venue, there was like a really bad scene, bad vibe with the guys from the label. And yeah, so I really wasn't in a very good place when we did it. I was really quite angry and frustrated, and
well, the performance doesn't show. The performance,
right? I mean, it probably, maybe it made me play better. I don't know, but yeah. So it doesn't. The actual gig itself was great in the end. I remember when we walked out on the stage, like the response from the audience was amazing. But yeah. I mean, maybe you can hear the anger and frustration in my voice and in my playing on that one.
Well, you're one of those guys that translates both on your regular records, live and live together, both sound the same. Meaning,
okay,
it's a live sound. When you're in the studio, you get a live sound. No, if there's no audience, you can hear it in
yeah.
the records.
I mean, I think maybe not so much with a rock record, but certainly with like a blues record, you have to capture the band live.
Yeah.
In the studio. Yeah, I don't think it works like tracking drums and then bass and then guitar, because there's certain moments that happen. The rhythm section are there to sort of support the soloist or the vocalist, and blues can just be really flat, and unless you've got a great rhythm section that know how to respond to what the soloist is doing,
yep,
and sort of move with them. Yeah, you get some great little moments that happen like that you just couldn't get if you were recording like one thing at a time. I think making a rock album is a little bit different because it's more kind of structured. There's a bit more composition involved and a bit less like improvisation. But yeah.
Well, the thing that got me was when I heard raw blues. The first thing that got me was, where's the guitar? All I hear is the harp, and
right.
That was shocking, because usually a harp player or harmonica player is comes in and leaves. You weren't leaving. You keep
Right.
playing, and it's great because
Okay.
I'm going, where's the guitar player? You don't need a guitar player and the way this sounds.
Right.
And that's something special about you that no one else I know does.
Okay. No, that's good to know. Yeah, I mean, I think to be honest, I have had good guitar players on my records as well. Like, Stuart Dixon was the guitarist on Raw Blues, and Danny Giles on the live record.
Nothing against the guitar players, but that's
I know. Yeah,
yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. You have great guitar players on the records,
right?
But the full focus is on you. You put the focus on yourself,
right?
Rather than the guitar player on those songs, and it's like it's a breath of fresh air to hear those songs like that.
Cool. Because that's good to know.
Because you're waiting for a guitar solo and there isn't one sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's the special part about you that I like about you is you just let it rip. You let it rip, and the songs are great, and a lot of the songs that you've written sound great too. You're a great little writer.
Thank you.
Thanks. Like I said, Paranoia. I play that song to death.
Okay.
People love it. Love that song.
Yeah, that was in the live in the live set for years. Actually, that it was one that I could never drop. You know.
No, because it's that good. 38 too is the second song on the Unleashed record,
Right.
I
Yeah,
think.
the kind of funk thing.
Those two back to back. I play them back to back. That's how good they are.
Yeah. Thanks.
So let's talk about Bad Luck Friday. What made you
Right.
decide to go in a different direction from what you were already doing?
I suppose, you know, like I said, when I was growing up, I had these two kind of different
Yep.
sets of influences. The old stuff, and then the kind of contemporary rock stuff that I grew up with in my teens. And I'd always had this kind of idea of starting a, you know, contemporary rock band that has harmonica as, you know, the main lead instrument in it, because no one's really done that. You know,
Nope.
I suppose like John Popper and Blues Traveler would be the closest thing. I mean, he can rip on the harp, but they're not really like a hard rock band, you know. So that was what I wanted to do, and I wanted to write some songs really with you know, choruses and middle eights, more concise, structured songs with hooks rather than just a load more 12 bars, you know, because I'd made a few albums like that by this point. So I just wanted to see if I could do it really, you know, and kind of take the harp to new grounds, and sort of show people that it could be used in other music other than just, you know, blues and country and whatever.
And you did it.
Yeah.
And the sound of the band sounds great. I've been listening to Bad Luck Friday. It's great. It's a great album.
Thanks. Yeah.
So some of the blues people that are out there playing, who who have you either opened for? I know you've worked with Walter Trout. I saw this
Right.
video of you at Walter Trout. Anybody else that you've worked with?
I'm sure there's loads. I just can't think of any of them right now. Mike Zito, I guested with Mike recently.
Was that with the Blood Brothers?
Yeah,
Mike
Mike
and
Zito and
yep.
Albert Castillo. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What was
There's a
that like?
band
What was that like to be with those guys?
that was great. Yeah, they're both quite funny. You know, good to hang out with, and great players too. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was a lot of fun. There's a band I play with sometimes called Never the Bride, a rock band that have been around in England for a long time. So they're not really a blues band. You know, there's a bit of blues influence in there. So that allows me to do some different kind of stuff, you know, rather than just the usual sort of blues harp stuff that you hear.
People don't realize the late 60s is when the big blues explosion happened in England with Peter Green and Eric Clapton. But they don't realize now it's happening again with all guys like you, your sister,
Right.
Lawrence Jones, who's in England. There's a
Sure. Yeah.
bunch. There's a bunch of you. I mean, I just can't believe how many great blues artists, young blues artists, are here playing in England, in the Great Britain. Period.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I've always felt like harmonica kind of got left behind a little bit. You know, like if you go back to like the 50s, the harp is just as popular as the guitar, as like a lead instrument. You know, if you listen to Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, all that stuff, you know, a lot of it has more harmonica solos in it than guitar solos. And there were a lot of, you know, very virtuoso players at that time. Little Walter, Big Walter, Junior Wells, you know, the list goes on. And with the 60s British blues boom, you obviously had guys like Eric Clapton and Peter Green, and around the same time, Jimi Hendrix, which really kind of moved the blues guitar forward, and took it into this sort of blues rock territory.
Well, you have Savoy Brown, who was a rock band basically doing blues.
Right. Yeah. But there wasn't really anyone at that time that did that with the harp.
No.
I mean,
you're right.
There were bands in the 60s that had a bit of harmonica, like, the Stones or...
well, the only one was Mayall. John Mayall during that time.
Yeah. I suppose Paul Butterfield would probably be the main one that, started to...
Right, but I mean, in England, I think Mayall was the only one at that time.
Right. Yeah. And then, so the guitar kind of bridged this gap from blues into blues rock and then just into rock. But the harp didn't really do that. You just get the odd band like Deep Purple, Aerosmith, who, the singer might play a little bit of harp on like one song or something. But there was never like, a band or an artist that was a virtuoso harmonica player that put it like front and center.
You just opened me up to the next question by saying that. Lazy, you play Lazy on that on that Bring It On Home record. And that version of Lazy is incredible because I'm not used to hearing a harmonica playing the guitar part.
Right. Yeah. I think that was the first song I recorded with my WIlde tuning, actually. And I'd only actually had it for about a week at that time.
Was that your version of the harmonica that you
Yeah.
It wasn't the ones that are reproduced now. It was one of yours.
No, that was one that I tuned myself. So all the kind of high fast stuff you hear in that's not really possible on a regular harp. Yeah. So that was kind of a turning point for me.
That song was a turning point when I heard it. I'm going, well, you hear the there's keyboards in it, there's guitar, but there's really no harmonica used on that song. And you just take it to another level.
Cool.
You like that, right?
Yeah, that was the idea. So, yeah.
The other song which was interesting was The Wizard that you did on that record, Bring It On Home.
Yeah, I mean, that one, I suppose wasn't so, maybe a little more obvious than Lazy, because obviously the original has the harp riff in it.
But not as much.
The harp up a little bit.
Not as much. It's only kind of in the beginning.
No.
Right.
Yeah. It's a guitar solo on the original.
But yeah, you make it your own, like everything else that you do. You make it your own.
That's the idea.
So, next question. Here's a good question for you. You like to challenge yourself with songs like that.
Right, yeah.
What's the next challenge? Tell me the next challenge. What song do you want to challenge next to try to do on a harmonica that it hasn't been done yet?
I don't know really. I mean, I've been doing a lot of these things on YouTube, not as like official releases, but just just playing solos from famous guitar solos for YouTube videos. So I did Freebird. I don't know if you saw that.
I haven't seen that. No.
Okay, so that's like my most viewed video on YouTube. That one really blew up. So I did the whole Freebird solo. I've done Stairway to Heaven, Comfortably Numb. There's a bunch of other things as well. But those were probably Jessica, the Allman Brothers. They're probably the most challenging ones I've done. I did some heavier stuff as well. I did Nothing Else Matters by Metallica. Really just trying to push limit of the harmonica, so those have been fun. But
How about harder edge bands like Tool? You ever tried anything?
Tool, yeah, I don't know. I've never really been big into Tool, actually. I'll have to have a listen.
Yeah, they're pretty high. I bet it's difficult to play some of that stuff because it's in different time signatures and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
mostly guitar. A lot of it's guitar.
right. Yeah, I mean, people challenge me to play this or that all the time, like in the in the YouTube comments. What's that Dragon Force thing? Through the Fire and Flames.
Yep.
I mean, I
See what
don't really think
see
it's
what you
possible.
started. See what you started.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, certain things like tapping on the guitar, when they're sort of using two hands. So there are some things that you can do on the guitar that I think are impossible to do on the harp. Someone might prove me wrong one day, but the stuff that's kind of rooted in blues tends to work the best, Yeah.
So you teach too. I saw that you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that and how people can hook up with you if they want to learn.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've got an online harmonica course. If you go to Will WIlde harmonicamasterclass.com, I've got like a free beginner course, and then I've got a big like 10-part comprehensive blues course. So you can learn with me like that. And then I do offer a limited number of like one-to-one Skype sessions with me. But those are now restricted to people that have completed the course first. Yeah.
So let's talk about you use both types of harmonicas, I take it, not just your own.
Yeah, I use a few different tunings actually. And in Bad Luck Friday, it's mostly just my own tuning now. But I still play regular Richter tuned harps. I like the natural minor tuning, and sometimes I use the country tuning as well. I do quite a lot of remote session work from my studio here, and I get all kinds of stuff comes in, So like one day I'll be doing a country track, the next day might be a rock thing, and then the next like electronic dance music kind of thing. So
you do that too, huh? Electronic dance music.
yeah. I played on a song for a producer called Diplo, a song called Do Si Do, which was fairly big. The harp loop in that was me.
Wow.
So yeah, get around.
Let's talk about the other part of the harp, your amps.
Right. Yeah.
The amps are important to get the right sound, correct?
Yeah, for sure. So I got the Fender Bassman behind me. It's good for bigger gigs. I've got Fender custom Vibrolux reverb over here, which is what I've been using most of the time lately. And then I've got this Axe-Fx, Fractal Audio Axe-Fx, which is like a digital amp modeler, I guess, which can basically model any amp you can think of. So any Marshall or Messer or Fender, it's got some boutique amps in it as well. So I use that a lot of the time now, because it's for the more kind of high gain guitar like sounds that I use. Obviously when you're plugging a microphone into a high gain guitar amp, it tends to feed back a lot. So with the Axe-Fx, there is no amp or speaker. So I can just monitor it in headphones, and then I can use any kind of sound that I want. So yeah.
How about microphones? Specific microphones you use?
Yeah, the one I'm using currently is it's the Bayer Dynamic M88, which was actually bought for me by a fan on YouTube. He got in touch with me and said, "Have you tried this mic out?" And I said, "No, what's that?" And he sent one to me in the post. And it's great. I've been using it ever since. So yeah.
That's great. How about bullet mics? Do you use bullet mics at all?
Do you know what? No. They look cool. They certainly look cool. And they have a certain sound, but I don't know, maybe because I've got fairly small hands, I don't get on with them really. Because one of the keys to getting a good sound is getting a good airtight cup around the mic.
Yep.
And yeah, I just find bullet mics a bit awkward. I used one recently on a jam in the North Carolina Harp Fest that I was at last month, because it was just what was plugged into the amp up there, and I remembered why I don't like using them.
Well, tell me why you don't like using
it's
them.
this really big thing. I'm just kind of like struggling to
hold on to
it, and so it's more important to me just to be comfortable on stage, and I've been using just a standard harp players call them stick mics,
Yeah.
standard vocal style microphone. It's what I've been using for years now, so I'm just used to it.
So what's the most important thing that's happened to you in your career up to date?
Whew.
Good question, isn't it?
That's a good one. Yeah. I don't know really. I mean, getting to tour Europe several times was certainly been important. That nothing beats getting out and just playing live and playing regularly.
Have you toured over here in the US?
I haven't toured in the US. No, like I said, I've been out a couple of places for just like one-off events. But I would really like to get out and tour. I know that most of my audience are in the United States, because when I look at my analytics on YouTube, so at least
we all love you over here. You need to come over here.
Cool. Yeah, I'm working on it. I'd say sharing the stage with Water Trout is certainly like a high point for me, because being the sort of blues rock harp guy, I've always been trying to show that the harp can hold its own with the guitar. So to actually get on stage with one of the world's greatest blues rock guitar players and go head to head with him was a lot of fun.
It's fun watching him playing a solo and you matching the solo with your
harmonica. Yeah. He told me he really likes my playing. So
well, you push him. That was what I saw. You were pushing him, and he was pushing you.
I don't know about that. He said he was certainly pushing me, but yeah.
You were pushing him too. Don't be like that, because I saw it. It's like he was loving it. He was eating it up.
Right. Yeah. Actually, the last time, because I've done it a couple of times now, when he's been over here on tour, and the last time I'd gone round the 12th bar twice, and tried to really like build it to a big climax, and what a lot of people don't realize is on my harmonicas, most of the notes that I play are inhale, right? Mostly draw notes. It's not actually a lot of exhale. So I'm kind of filling up and up and up with air. I really need a chance to breathe out. And I think I finished the solo, built it up to this big thing. And then water comes over and starts shouting in my ear, one more. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to go around again, you know. So I tried to lift it again, and I finished the third round of this solo, and honestly, like, my knees went weak, and my vision started fading out, and I thought I was gonna faint from like oxygen deprivation, you know. But yeah,
It worked out though.
it worked out. Yeah.
Well, I did an interview last week with someone you know
Who's that?
from Italy, Eliana
Oh yeah, cool.
Cognaluti.
Yeah, I've sat in with her a couple of times when she's been playing over here.
She said you were on her last record, right?
I was, yeah. Just a little bit, you know. It's sort of like reggae blues vibe, that song. Yeah.
She's got a great. She plays great too. She's a great guitar player, singer and guitar player.
Yeah.
She had nice things to say about your sister too. She said she loves her voice. That's all
Right,
she said to me.
I think they did a tour together, actually. They were on the Roof Records Girls and Guitars tour.
Yep.
Together a few years ago. I think Joanne Shaw Taylor might have been on it.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah.
Look at all the great people you just mentioned from over in Europe that play in blues. Lots of them.
Yeah, right.
Surprise! Yeah. You know, I didn't realize how many great people are out there playing in Europe right now, and it's like I see people from Italy come over here play, and England, and I mean, even there's a band called the Starlight Campbell Band that's from England, from the Isle of Man.
Okay,
they connect with me as well. They're another British band from England. That's why I say the late 1960s is coming back. You guys, all of you guys are keeping it alive, the blues alive over there.
Well, yeah, doing our best.
So how do people find out about you, Will?
Well, I mean, if you just Google Will WIlde, you'll find me.
It's Will Harmonica WIlde, right?
My website address is willharmonicawilde.com. You can find my band at badluckfriday.com. Yeah.
You're on all the social networks, right?
All of those things, yeah. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. For all the kids out there that are on TikTok.
One last question. You mentioned you have possibly going to be working on another blues record because you have some songs.
Right, yeah.
When do you think that's going to happen?
That is a very good question. I've been working on demos for it today, actually. So I'm pretty much ready to go. I need to decide on, you know, what the lineup's going to be, what studio we're going to use. I want to, like I was saying, I want to kind of make it live in the studio and get someone to come in and film it all, so we can put it on YouTube. So I'm not really sure of the timeline. Probably I'll get in the studio beginning of next year, maybe January. And then it always takes a lot of time to get everything in order, you know.
So end of the year, probably the following year.
Yeah, I would have thought so. Yeah. I haven't been out really as Will WIlde for a while now because I've been doing the Bad Luck Friday thing. So I need to get everything up and running again.
Well, that's great.
It shouldn't be too long.
Well, Will, I just want to say thank you for taking some time out. Almost 50 minutes. Wow, it's been a while. But it's been fun. It's been fun.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Tom.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Likewise.
Have a good day.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you. All right, you're listening to 91.5 WUML. That was Will WIlde coming to you all the way from England.